Vivien put on a delicate makeup and, recalling the 7 years she had spent with her husband, slowly stepped into the bathtub filled with water. She took off her ring and sank slowly into the water, feeling that she no longer owed him anything. 5 days ago, Vivien had been kissing her husband Michael passionately at home. She kissed his Adam's apple, pushed him onto the bed, leaned in close, and said, "Kiss me." He flipped her over and kissed her back. Afterwards, she held him from behind, but he coldly pushed her away. 7 years ago, his girlfriend Lily fell seriously ill and was rushed into surgery. He knelt on the floor, feeling helpless. Vivien walked up to him and said, "If you sign this agreement, I will donate blood to save her." He believed that Vivien had threatened him with Lily's life, forcing him to marry her, and he had never forgiven her for it. He lifted her chin, leaned in slowly, but suddenly stopped, telling her, "I don't love you. I wish you'd die." He released her chin and turned to leave. His words left her heartbroken. Michael entered the bathroom. He actually cared deeply for Vivien but would never admit it. After saying harsh words, he would always feel guilty and send her a new project as an apology gift. He gazed at the sorrowful Vivien, touching his ring necklace, lost in thought. The next day, when Vivien arrived at the company, she saw Olivia. Olivia ordered Vivien to leave Michael, but Vivien slapped her and grabbed her hair. Olivia tried to retaliate with a wine bottle, but when she heard Michael arriving at the company, she smashed the bottle on her head and sat down on the floor. After Michael walked into the office, she immediately clung to his arm, seeking his help. Believing Olivia's words, he prepared to leave with her, but Vivien stopped them and said, "Michael, remember our agreement. You must always do whatever I ask. Now, come over and kiss me." Olivia begged him not to do it, but he clenched his fists, turned, and walked towards Vivien, bending down to kiss her. Olivia was furious. Michael said to Vivien, "You really disgust me." Then he left with Olivia. Late at night, Olivia, furious, stared at Vivien's photo. She was Lily's twin sister. 7 years ago, she had bribed Lily's attending doctor and falsely accused Vivien of delaying her blood donation, which led to Lily's failed rescue and death. Now, Olivia considered Vivien her rival. She ripped up Vivien's photo, vowing to make sure she would get Michael. The next day, Olivia attended a party, arm in arm with Michael. She took Vivien's hand, pretending to be friendly, but Vivien slapped her across the face. The guests were stunned. Michael grabbed Vivien's hand and pulled her away, warning her, "Don't hurt Olivia, or you'll regret it." Olivia then told Vivien, "Do you know why Michael treats me so well? Because I look exactly like my twin sister Lily. The ring he always wears is the token of love he shared with my sister." Vivien was shocked, as Michael had previously told her that Lily was his sister. Now she learned that Lily had been his ex-girlfriend. Olivia continued to accuse her of being cold-hearted and failing to save Lily in time, which led to her death. It was then that Vivien realized she had unknowingly caused the death of a girl and had been the third party in someone else's relationship. To prove her importance to Michael, Olivia dragged Vivien into the swimming pool. When Michael saw this, he shouted, "Vivien," and immediately jumped into the pool. Vivien's friend Tom also rushed to save her and was about to perform CPR, but Michael shoved him away, telling him, "She's my wife." Tom scolded him for never appreciating Vivien and not deserving her love. Michael fired back, calling him a bastard, and then picked up Vivien to leave. Olivia, witnessing all of this, burned with jealousy. When Vivien woke up, she saw Michael asleep by her bed. She reached out to touch his face, but he suddenly woke up. She told him she had learned about Lily and felt guilty, saying she would find a way to make it up to him. He recalled the scene from years ago, when Vivien had told him that only she and Lily had the same rare blood type in the entire city, so only she could save Lily. He had cried as he took the agreement and signed it. He told Vivien, "I'll never forgive you in this lifetime, unless you die. Every moment I spend with you, I just wish I could kill you." His words shattered her completely, so she decided to end her life to settle the debt she owed him. When Tom found Vivien, she was lying motionless in a bathtub of blood. When Michael returned home, he saw the divorce papers on the table. Vivien had left him a note saying, "Let's get divorced. I'm giving you your freedom, and from now on we're even." He tore up the note and signed the divorce papers. Then, he went to a bar, drunk beyond measure. Olivia was overjoyed when she heard about the divorce. After he got home, he saw Vivien coming towards him with a cup of hot milk. Just as he was about to argue, he realized it was just an illusion. He felt conflicted because deep down, he didn't want to divorce Vivien. Just then, his friend Bruce called to tell him that Olivia was sick and had been hospitalized. When Michael arrived at the hospital, he found Olivia faking illness, happily eating snacks. He pulled back her blanket and said, "I've really spoiled you. Last time you tricked Vivien into falling into the water, and now you're pretending to be sick. What exactly do you want?" Olivia wrapped her arms around his waist and said, "I like you. My face looks exactly like my sister Lily's, so you can think of me as her." He pushed her away and said, "But you're not Lily." Olivia angrily retorted, "My sister Lily was killed by Vivien, and you've been with Vivien for 7 years. You're an accomplice too." Michael walked out of the room and saw Vivien, unconscious, being wheeled into the operating room. He stood by the door, and as soon as Tom saw him, he angrily grabbed his collar. Michael said, "I just want to know if she's dead. If she is, I'll be very happy." Tom became even angrier, and they started to fight, but Bruce stopped them. Vivien had been missing for an entire month. Bruce said to Michael, "This is unusual. Vivien used to post about you two every day, sharing your sweet moments, but she hasn't updated anything in the past month." Vivien's assistant Mary arrived at her house to move all her things out. She looked at the text Vivien had sent her before she took her own life. Vivien had written, "I hope you take good care of yourself and manage the company for me. And don't blame Michael." Mary looked at the wedding photo, thinking that Vivien was too foolish and devoted. Olivia made lunch for Michael, and when he saw the crabs, he remembered how Vivien used to make him hearty meals and knew he was allergic to seafood, so she would use other ingredients. Though Michael had resisted her at the time, she had hugged him and fed him porridge. After he drank it, he couldn't help but praise how good it was. But as soon as he realized what he had done, he quickly left. He touched his ring, reminding himself not to betray his late first love, Lily. He told Olivia that he was allergic to seafood and left the office. She was furious and flipped over the dishes. Michael tried calling Vivien, but the call couldn't get through. He remembered how Vivien had been upset before because he hadn't set a special nickname or ringtone for her. He had called her childish and handed her the phone. After she set it up, she told him, "You can try to like me slowly. We have plenty of time." Michael couldn't help but smile. Bruce told him, "I followed Tom and Mary and saw them frequently visiting a cemetery. I found Vivien's tombstone there." Michael was shocked. He refused to believe Vivien was dead, thinking it was just her trick. So, he ordered his assistant to take down Vivien's company and force her to show up. Soon after, Mary found out that the company's projects and funds had been cut off by Michael. In order to save the company, Mary went to see him with a photo of Vivien. She said, "You wanted to find Vivien, right? She's here." Michael stared at the photo in her hands, stunned. She slapped him hard and said, "As you wish. Vivien is dead. Are you happy now?" Michael laughed, not believing it was true, and threw Vivien's photo on the ground. Mary then took out Vivien's death certificate and threw it at him. He picked up the certificate and looked at the words on it, but then he ripped it up and told Mary, "I won't believe it until I see her in person." Just then, Tom walked in holding an urn. Inside the urn was Vivien's wedding ring. Michael remembered when she had asked him to put the wedding ring on her. Though reluctant, he had done it. That night, she had wanted to sleep with him and had scolded him for not touching her since they got married. He had grabbed her hand, pinned her against the wall, lifted her chin, and said, "From now on, I'll sleep with you 3 times a month." Then, he kissed her passionately. From then on, Vivien had cherished that ring and never took it off. Tom handed Michael the urn, and Michael, lost and devastated, turned and left. When he got home, Olivia came to find him, hugging him and saying, "I heard Vivien's dead. Congratulations on finally getting rid of her control." He pushed her away and replied, "Vivien isn't dead. I'm going to find her." Olivia asked if he had fallen in love with Vivien, but he didn't admit it. Olivia took off her coat, but he immediately put it back on her and said, "I don't like you. I just promised your sister I would take care of you." He then got drunk, crying to Bruce, "I regret it. If I hadn't said those harsh words to her, maybe she wouldn't have died." In reality, Vivien wasn't dead. She had been saved in time and had survived. But she decided to fake her death and had Tom help cover for her. Tom had been Vivien's senior in school and had secretly loved her for years. He confessed his feelings, but she told him, "You're an important person to me, and I'm grateful for you, but I don't love you." After Tom left her room, he couldn't stop crying, knowing she still loved Michael in her heart. The next day, Vivien secretly returned home. She remembered how she used to hold Michael on the couch, how she would hug him from behind and kiss his cheek. She suddenly noticed that the photo on the table had been changed, and she was surprised, as he had once said he hated this photo. At that moment, Michael returned home, and Vivien quickly hid. She hadn't expected him to come back, especially since he had always said he hated returning to this house. He saw the painting she had made and remembered how she had once held his hand and said, "I will wait for you to fall in love with me, no matter how long it takes." As he looked at the painting, tears welled up in his eyes, but he still stubbornly said, "She's dead. Why would I keep this trash?" He threw the painting on the floor, and Vivien, seeing this, was heartbroken. She thought he truly hated her. But what she didn't know was that after she left, Michael knelt on the floor, staring at the painting and crying uncontrollably. He said, "I regret it. Let's start over." He remembered their sweet times together, sobbing. Olivia, seeing this, was furious. She had known all along that Vivien wasn't really dead, so she called her subordinates, ordering them to kill Vivien as soon as possible. Michael wanted to take Vivien's belongings, but Tom said to him, "Do you want to know where her belongings are? Kneel for me first." To his surprise, Michael actually knelt down in front of him. Tom handed Michael a key and told him it was the key to the villa where Vivien committed suicide. Michael went to the villa and saw the wedding photo on the table. Then he saw Vivien sitting on the bed, so he sat beside her and cupped her face in his hands. She smiled at him, and he smiled back. However, it was just an illusion. He entered the bathroom and saw the blood-stained water in the bathtub. It was as if he was reliving the scene from the day she had attempted suicide, and he was so terrified that he collapsed to the ground. Trembling, he touched the blood-stained water, crying as he slapped himself several times. Unable to control his emotions any longer, he became overwhelmed with grief and fainted. Vivien wanted to leave the city, so Tom decided to take her away. However, they were suddenly knocked down by a car. It was Olivia's men sent to kill Vivien. She was excited, thinking that from now on, Michael would belong only to her. Michael received a call from Bruce at home, learning that Vivien wasn't dead, but had been in a car accident and was now in the hospital, undergoing treatment. He rushed to the hospital. Vivien survived, and Michael tightly held her hand, saying, "From now on, let me love you." He kissed her hand, but she suddenly woke up, pulled her hand away, and asked, "Who are you?" She recognized Tom and Bruce, remembered the car accident, but had completely forgotten about Michael. The doctor explained that Vivien was suffering from selective amnesia due to severe brain trauma, and she would subconsciously forget painful memories. Michael asked Bruce to investigate the true culprit behind the car accident and entrusted the company to him. He was no longer interested in managing the company and just wanted to stay by Vivien's side and make amends. The next day, Michael arrived at the hospital and saw Vivien happily chatting with Tom. He had made her a meal himself, but she told him, "I'm not your wife anymore. Stop bothering me." After saying that, she threw all the food onto the floor. She held Tom's hand and said, "Even if I get married, I would choose Tom, not you." Michael replied, "No matter what you do, I will never give up on you." Olivia was furious and questioned how he could fall in love with a murderer. He pushed her hand away and said, "We both know that Lily's death had nothing to do with Vivien. Don't ever show up in front of me again." A few days later, Vivien ran into Michael in the hospital corridor. He grabbed her hand, and she bit his arm. He begged her for another chance, but Tom ordered him to let her go. Michael said, "She's my wife. What does it have to do with you?" He then picked Vivien up and walked away, leaving Tom furious. Michael told her that he had torn up the divorce papers, so they were still married. She wanted to leave, but he held her hand, and she accidentally kissed him. She tried to escape, but Michael pressed her head down and kissed her again. This time, she didn't resist. When she realized what had happened, she slapped him across the face. He asked, "You didn't lose your memory, right?" She didn't answer and hurriedly ran away. Michael touched his lips, unable to stop smiling. Half a month later, Vivien recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Michael bought her a bouquet of flowers, but she threw it to the ground and said, "You disgust me now. I don't want to see you again." Michael tried to grab her hand to stop her, but she left with Tom. To help them reconcile, Bruce arranged a meeting with Vivien, hoping to give Michael a chance to have a proper conversation with her. However, when Michael arrived at the cafe with roses and a ring, he found that the cafe was on fire. His flowers fell to the ground as he pushed through the crowd, banging on the cafe windows and shouting Vivien's name. Passers-by tried to stop him, but he took off his jacket and tried to break the glass. Just then, Vivien appeared behind him. She called his name, and he froze. Turning around, he walked toward her and hugged her tightly, relieved that she was still alive and that he hadn't lost her again. The next day, Olivia invited Vivien to the rooftop and admitted that she had been the one responsible for her sister Lily's death. Michael, who had just arrived, overheard her confession and was stunned. He angrily demanded to know why she had been so malicious, but she suddenly pulled out a knife and pressed it against Vivien's neck. Seizing the opportunity, Michael pulled Vivien into his arms, but Olivia, in a fit of rage, stabbed him. Michael was relieved that he had finally protected Vivien. He collapsed into her arms, closed his eyes, and lost consciousness. However, Vivien still planned to leave the country, knowing that there was a wall between her and Michael that could never be crossed. A month later, Tom went to see Michael, handing him Vivien's ring and her address abroad. Michael, overwhelmed with emotion, rushed out of the house. Do you think there's still hope for them to reconcile? Share your opinions in the comments.